This is Albert Fish. Up to 10 murders were committed in New York State between 1924 and 1934 by Albert Fish, also known as the Gray Man. In the end, he was found guilty of 3 crimes in 1935, all involving young children. Fish, a pedophile, someone who seeks masochistic sex, had peculiar fetishes, such as sticking needles into his belly and eating a lot of raw meat. He also liked to burn wool that had been soaked in kerosene in his anus. Following the 1928 murder, dismemberment, and consumption of a 10-year-old Grace Budd, Fish went on to develop a taste for human flesh. In a scathing letter to the mother of the child, he described his culinary method. Initially, I stripped her naked. She bit and scratched as she kicked. To make my meat portable to my rooms, I strangled her to death before chopping her into small pieces. Cook it and consume it. What a delicious and tender roast her tiny ass was. I needed 9 days to consume her entire body, though I could have if I wanted to. I didn't fuck her. She was a virgin when she passed away. Haunting. Fish made no attempt to show remorse during his trial, boasting at one point that he had a child in every state, and failing to even try and hide his guilt. Even then, when finally sentenced to death by electric chair at Sing Sing Prison in Ossining, New York, he said that his final moments on Earth were the supreme thrill of my life. Yeah, isn't that just beyond belief? Doesn't that just make your blood boil? Ugh. This is Dennis Rader. For a series of murders that began in 1974 in Wichita, Kansas, Dennis Rader, also known as BTK, an acronym for his method of operation, bind, torture, kill, was given a 10-year sentence to be served consecutively in 2005. Rader, a deaf con in a church and a leader of Boy Scouts, astounded the jury during his trial by gleefully reliving the horrific details of his crimes. He also displayed a smug, almost sexual gratification in the recounting of his murderous rampage. He said that before killing Shirley Vian, 24, by strangulation, he had tied her kids up in another room to try to keep them quiet. After trying this and failing, he made them watch the death of their mother. We transferred them to the restroom. She was very helpful. I then fastened the door closed. To make the kids as comfortable as possible, we placed some toys, blankets, and other miscellaneous items in there. She returned and helped me push the bed against the other bathroom door after we tied one of the doors to the restroom shut so they couldn't open it. I then started tying her up. She vomited and became ill. I went and got her a glass of water, tried to comfort her a little, and then strangled her with a bag over her head after tying her up. This is Stephen Griffiths. Stephen Griffiths was a criminology PhD candidate at Bradford University in England, who yearned for fame outside of the realm of academia. Griffiths' evil aspirations were modeled after those of his hero, Peter Sutcliffe, also known as the Yorkshire Ripper. Griffiths started carrying out the first of 3 homicides in 2009, a string of crimes that would rock Bradford and earn him the self-explanatory nickname of the Crossbow Cannibal. Griffiths yearned for a kind of notoriety that would place him in the annals of history's greatest mass murderers. Shortly after his capture, CCTV footage of Griffiths celebrating the murder of his last victim, 36-year-old Suzanne Blamers, appeared in the English press. Griffiths was seen holding up his crossbow and pointing it directly at the camera in the hallway of his apartment building. Despite how disturbing the video was, it was never played in court, because the fame-hungry Griffiths was keen to confess to his crimes and gave a graphic account of how he dismembered his victims in the bathtub before eating pieces of their flesh. This is William MacDonald. The first of his kind in Australia was William. He was the first serial killer of 2 Australians, earning him the moniker of Jack the Ripper of Australia. Creative. But he was more commonly known as the Mutilator for obvious reasons. He terrorized Sydney between 1961 and 1962. 5 victims were killed by MacDonald, and after keeping them for a few days, he threw away their genitalia. He doesn't provide any specific explanation for his motivations other than the fact that he feels compelled to carry out his actions, which we believe is reasonable from a psychological perspective. However, after appearing in court, McDonald would state in upcoming interviews, "Since I would be afraid of repeating my mistakes, I wouldn't want a fresh start. A leopard, so the saying goes, never changes its spots. I feel driven to commit crimes without giving them a second thought, and I'm caught in 63. So there must be something in me that's just built in and that I can't change naturally." At the time of his death in 2015, McDonald was content with serving a life sentence and expressing his fear at the prospect of continuing to do so. This is Carl Panzram. Some people believe that Carl Panzram was the most cruel serial killer in history. The Minnesota native, who committed a total of 21 murders and an undetermined number of rapes, all of which involved young boys and men, carried out his crimes not only in the United States, but also in the African nation of Angola, where he allegedly killed 6 local guides prior to actually feeding them to crocodiles. After breaking another prisoner's skull with an iron bar in 1930, Panzram was ultimately condemned to death and hung there. He was doing a 25-year bid at the time for murder and rape of 2 boys. He greeted his death with rage and defiance, saying, "Hurry it up, you Hoosier bastard," as he was put to death. He got his real last words in an autobiography he left behind, written by a cellmate with Panzram dictating. These nihilistic rants lacked humanity, even in the face of the most heinous crimes such as this infamous passage. "In my lifetime, I've killed 21 people, committed countless burglaries, robberies, larcenies, and arsons, and last but not least, I have engaged in sodomy with more than 1,000 males. And I don't even feel the slightest bit sorry for any of these things." This is Michael Elijah Adams. I ran into a big homie from FTRA, or Freight Train Riders of America, one of those phony 13 members from Montana with a stolen $80 from my mom. Michael Elijah Adams remarked, and the rest is history. He was asked to talk to someone who had never met him and describe everything. He said, "Simply get in your car wherever you want to go and drive there. You won't get instructions from anyone. You guys were hustling while ducking and dodging. At the border where we stayed, we were the big dogs. We were the aggressive ones. I refer to women, drugs, and guns." Since he was 14 years old, Michael, a trained drifter who is now 48 years old, had proudly taken the lives of 16 other drifters. By acting as a ruthless enforcer and obstructing the transportation of drugs to other states, apparently a common method of product delivery, Michael even admits in his own words that he's performing a public service to the U.S. He provided the following response when asked how many bodies in total he had deformed. "I'm not sure. I think it was 16. On the street, a lot of new people can be seen. Yeah, I'm pleased with my work." He was then questioned, "How do you approach it, typically? In other words, how would you go about with it?" "Anything, anywhere. A pistol, a gun, an axe handle, a 2x4. We simply need to capture somebody, you know. As an illustration, let's say I catch a child molester down the street who owes you $20. He already knows what happens after that." Following his arrest, Adams learned that he was facing a life sentence. Adams even expressed happiness that he could now retire and live in a stable environment because he's proud of what he's done.